All right, let's dive into one of Scotland's most haunting, most perplexing, unsolved criminal cases. For over 50 years, the identity of a killer who stalked the dance halls of Glasgow has remained a total mystery. All he left behind was a legacy of fear and this ghost-like figure known only as Bible John. You know, this quote from the lead detective years after the murders, it just gets right to the heart of the frustration. Here's a killer who seemed to know Glasgow like the back of his hand, but then he just vanished into thin air. The question has always been, how did he do it? So, we're going to piece together the evidence, we're going to look at the manhunt, and try to get a handle on this almost mythical figure, a man who absolutely terrorized a city and became a true phantom of Scottish folklore. Okay, so our story starts in the late 1960s. It was a time of real social change, a really vibrant nightlife in Glasgow. But just under the surface, a truly terrifying pattern was about to emerge, and it all centered around one of the city's most popular spots. And here's the timeline, and it is grim. 3 young women, all of them mothers, all murdered over a period of just 20 months. Each crime was just brutal, and it didn't take long for investigators to realize they were all linked by one specific, very popular location. And this right here is the crucial connection, the Barrowland Ballroom. I mean, this was a place for music, for dancing, for fun, and it became the hunting ground for a predator. Each of the 3 women spent their final hours right here. And it's that contrast, a lively dance hall versus the grim reality of where their bodies were found, that makes this case so incredibly chilling. For the longest time, the police had almost nothing. They were getting nowhere. But the third murder, the murder of Helen Puddock, that changed everything. It gave them the single most important breakthrough in the entire investigation, a witness who had actually met the killer face to face. It was just pure random chance that gave police their biggest break. See, Helen Puddock's sister Jean was with her that night. She and Helen left the Barrowland with a man who said his name was John, and all 3 of them shared a taxi. Think about that. For 20 minutes, Jean sat in that cab, making small talk with a man who, just moments later, would murder her sister. From that absolutely harrowing taxi ride, Jean Langford gave police this incredibly detailed description. He was tall, well-dressed in a nice suit, and well-spoken. He had reddish hair and this really distinctive overlapping front tooth. This portrait became the face of the manhunt, plastered all over Scotland. The police finally had a face for their ghost. So, why Bible John? Well, this is how he got that infamous nickname. During that taxi ride, the suspect kept quoting from the Bible and making all these religious remarks, like this one about not drinking on New Year's Eve. He even went on about how adultery was a sin punishable by stoning. Because of these chilling comments, the press just dubbed him Bible John. And, well, the name stuck. So, armed with a name, a detailed description, the police launched one of the biggest investigations in Scottish history. But as the years started to turn into decades, the man they were hunting just remained a phantom. Several key suspects popped up, but none of them could ever be definitively linked to the crimes. And the scale of this whole effort, it was just immense. Police took 50,000 witness statements. They interviewed thousands of men named John. They put hairdressers and dentists on alert for anyone matching the description. The entire city was on edge, but Bible John, it was like he just evaporated. Over the years, a few really promising suspects came to light. There was John McInnes, who was actually the cousin of a senior police officer. They were so sure it was him that they exhumed his body in the 90s, but nope. The DNA cleared him. Years later, they looked hard at the infamous serial killer Peter Tobin, but there was just no evidence, and his timeline didn't match up for 2 of the murders. They even tracked down a guy who used a fake name after a fight at the ballroom, but he gave a voluntary DNA sample and was cleared. Every single lead just led to another frustrating dead end. So why? After all that effort, with such a detailed description, and even with modern forensic science, why is this case still cold? What happened to the man in the well-cut suit? Well, there are a few key reasons. First, forensic science back in the 60s was just rudimentary compared to what we have now. And while they did eventually get a DNA sample from Helen Puddock's clothing, it has never matched any prime suspect. Crucially, the one person to ever meet the killer, Jean Langford, has since passed away. And then there's the most compelling theory, that the killer just stopped. Either he died, got locked up for something else, or just left the country. And that's what makes this whole thing so baffling. The murders just stopped, as abruptly as they started. There was no escalation, no further trail to follow. It's almost as if the killer carried out these three horrifying acts and then simply ceased to exist, which just cemented his status as a true phantom. And that is the question that still hangs over the city of Glasgow today. With so much time having passed, with key evidence and witnesses gone, the odds get longer every single year. But the case does remain open, a chilling reminder of the polite, well-dressed man who quoted scripture right before committing murder and then just walked off into the night,